Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine a weapon, right? So precise, it gets called a suicide drone. It's completely, well, changing things in modern conflict.
Absolutely.
And then you have this new player, India, stepping up not just as a buyer, but as a supplier of this really cutting-edge tech. What does that even mean for everyone else? So today we're doing a deep dive into that fascinating world. Loitering munitions, that's the official term, not just suicide drones.
Right.
We'll look at how India used them successfully and why a country like Cyprus is suddenly very interested.
Yeah, keen interest.
Our mission really is to unpack India's Operation Sindoor, get clear on what these drones actually are, and explore why Cyprus is looking at them strategically. All based on reports from IDRW.org, social media, defense sources, the usual mix.
And what's really fascinating, I think, is seeing how these tools, which are relatively new on the scene, are genuinely reshaping strategy, especially, for countries looking for defense solutions that are effective, definitely, but also budget-friendly.
Against pretty advanced threats, too.
Exactly. Yeah. Which kind of raises that big question. How does a nation's military tech, its capabilities, actually impact its geopolitical standing? The whole balance of power thing.
That is a huge question. And this deep dive, well, it gives us some pretty compelling angles. It's not just cool new tech, is it? It's about how it's used strategically.
Right.
So let's start with the basics. What are loitering munitions? Lay it out for us.
Okay, so think of an unmanned aircraft, a drone, but instead of just flying a set path, it can hang around, it can loiter over an area for, well, sometimes quite a while.
Hovering.
Waiting, exactly. Waiting, searching for a specific target. And then this is the key part. Once it finds it, it doesn't fire a missile. It becomes the missile and dives and crashes right into the target, destroying itself in the process.
Ah, okay. Hence the nickname. Suicide drone. A bit grim, but descriptive.
It is descriptive, yeah.
Yeah.
And if you step back a bit, that ability to wait, observe, maybe get confirmation, and then strike with precision.
Yeah.
That's incredibly potent.
More flexible than, say, just firing artillery or sending in a plane immediately.
Precisely. Much more flexible, more responsive sometimes. Now, the material we've looked at points to a very specific trigger for India using these recently. A tragic one. The Pahalgam attack back on April 22nd.
Yeah, I saw that. 26 civilians killed. Just awful.
Truly awful. And that event, according to the sources, was the direct catalyst for India launching Operation Sindoor not long after, on May 7th, 2025.
A direct response, then, and the objective.
The stated goal, as reported, was to target and eliminate terrorist bases located in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, Bukak, and also the Punjab province. Now, we're just relaying the info here, neutrally, of course.
Of course, no endorsements, just reporting what the sources say. And the weapons used, specifically the loitering munitions.
Yes, the reports highlight two main types. First, the Nagastra 1. That one's Indian-made, developed by Solar Industries.
Okay, homegrown tech.
Right. And the second is the Sky Striker. This one's interesting. It's a result of an India-Israel partnership produced by a company called Alpha Design.
So a mix of domestic and joint venture systems? That's significant in itself, isn't it? Shows growing capability.
It really does. Points towards, increasing self-reliance in their defense sector.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just the loitering munitions. The operation also reportedly used SKLP missiles.
Ah, the ones from the Rafale jets. Air-launched cruise missiles. Powerful stuff.
Very. And also BrahMos cruise missiles, which are notoriously fast, supersonic, so a combination of assets.
But the focus seems to be on the effectiveness of the drones, particularly. What did the reports say about their impact?
Strikingly effective, according to the sources. They talk about precise destruction of strongholds in places like Bahalpur and Muridke. And the critical point, which gets emphasized, is that these strikes reportedly happened without causing any civilian casualties.
0 civilian casualties with that kind of strike power. That's genuinely impressive, if accurate, of course.
It is. It highlights the precision aspect these weapons offer.
It almost makes you wonder about the limitations or if it's always that clean. But okay, taking that reported effectiveness, that leads us straight to Cyprus, doesn't it?
It's a perfect bridge, yeah.
So India has this success, demonstrates this capability. What does that mean for a nation like Cyprus dealing with its own very different, very long-standing security challenges?
That's the crucial connection. Cyprus, as you know, has this long, complex dispute with Turkey going back to 1974. Turkey occupies northern Cyprus.
And Turkey has its own advanced drones in the region, right? Like the Bayraktar TB2s we hear so much about.
Exactly. The TB2s are very capable and deployed there. So Cyprus faces a sophisticated opponent. This really frames the challenge for, well, for many smaller nations with tighter defense budgets. How do you protect yourself effectively against adversaries with more advanced, more expensive tech without breaking the bank?
And the suggestion is India's drones might be part of that answer for Cyprus.
It looks that way. Cyprus has some very specific needs. They need something to counter, or at least deter, Turkey's drones and other systems. They need precision strike capability, definitely, but on a budget.
Cost effectiveness is key.
Absolutely. And maybe most importantly, in the modern environment, they need systems that are resilient. Drones that aren't easily jammed or disrupted by electronic warfare. That's huge now.
Okay, so resilience against jamming, cost-effective precision. How do the Indian drones stack up? The Nagastra one and Sky Striker.
Well, the reports highlight exactly those characteristics. Relatively low cost, pretty impressive range, and high precision. They seem to tick those boxes quite well for Cyprus's requirements.
It gives them a capability they might not otherwise afford.
Exactly. And just to give listeners a sense of what these types of systems can do, not necessarily these specific Indian ones, but the category. Think about something like the Israeli Harop drone. That thing can reportedly fly for up to 9 hours, loiter time, with the range stretching up to 1,000 kilometers.
9 hours. 1,000 kilometers. That's a serious capability, covering a lot of ground, a lot of time.
Huge patrol time and reach. So you see the potential these loitering munitions offer.
So for Cyprus, it's not just buying a weapon, it's acquiring a tailored, potentially affordable solution to a very specific, very difficult geopolitical problem.
Precisely. It balances cost with critical capabilities like that resistance to electronic warfare you mentioned.
And this deep dive suggests it's not just some sudden shopping trip for Cyprus, is it? There's a background here, a relationship.
Yeah, that's another important layer. This isn't happening in a vacuum. The material points to a long-standing relationship between India and Cyprus. Cyprus actually supported India's independence movement way back, historical ties.
That goes deep. Any other connections?
Well, India's contributed significantly to UN peacekeeping forces in Cyprus over the years. Apparently, 3 Indian generals have even commanded the force there.
Okay, so there's history, there's peacekeeping cooperation. What about recent defense ties before this drone interest?
Yes, there's a pattern. The sources mention India supplying advanced surveillance systems to Cyprus back in 2023. So this isn't the first defense deal.
Right, it builds on existing cooperation. And then, didn't Prime Minister Modi visit recently?
He did in 2025. And that visit was described quite pointedly as basically an Indian arms exhibition.
An arms exhibition, wow.
Yeah. And apparently these loitering munitions, the Nagastra and Sky Striker, were primary highlights, front and center.
So that visit really put these systems on display, underlining their strategic importance in the India-Cyprus relationship.
Absolutely. It wasn't just a diplomatic visit, it was a showcase. A statement about India's capabilities and its willingness to partner.
Stepping back then, considering the bigger picture, this suggests defense partnerships aren't purely transactional, are they?
Often not. They're frequently built on that existing diplomatic goodwill, the historical links. That mutual trust, however it's built, can definitely speed up adopting new tech and just deepen the overall strategic alignment between countries.
Makes sense. So let's try and summarize the key takeaways from this deep dive today. What's the core insight?
I think the main thing is seeing India's evolution. It's rapidly shifting from being primarily a buyer of major defense gear to becoming a credible, reliable supplier on the global stage.
Especially with these loitering munitions highlighted as cost-effective, durable, and, as we saw in Operation Sindoor, reportedly highly effective.
Exactly. And that marks a really fascinating shift, potentially, in global defense dynamics.
And for countries like Cyprus, what's the impact for them?
For nations maybe facing similar challenges, budget constraints, sophisticated neighbors, everything, these kinds of systems can be genuine game changers. They boost security, yes, but crucially, they do it at a manageable cost. They offer a way to counter advanced weapons with a precision that might have seemed out of reach before.
Enhanced security, lower costs, countering sophisticated threats. It's a compelling package. It really leaves you thinking, doesn't it? What are the wider implications here? If India continues growing as a defense supplier, how might that shuffle the deck in terms of global power dynamics?
That's the big question.
And just how will this continued evolution of drone technology, loitering munitions, and beyond keep reshaping international security? Something for us all to watch in the coming years.